Cool. Yeah, so like Dave said, my name is Joe Heth. Here's a couple little things about me. So I work for a company called Tinderbox. We're a sales automation software company out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm actually their only remote worker, so I've been working out of the coffee shops and libraries around Seattle for the last 7 months or so. And I got to meet Dave. Dave had the privilege of meeting Dave in January or February of this year at a football, or watching a football game. And he said, "Hey, I'm in software development, like you're in software development. I lead or co-lead the EmberJS group. Why don't you come here and talk about it?" And so I did. I came and I saw, and I was amazed by what Ember could do. But I kind of left it behind. I was like, "Oh man, that's really cool." Didn't think it was applicable to me quite yet. But then a couple weeks later, or a month later maybe, changed my mind. But let's see here. I can't remember what the slide is. Actually, I'm going to start off from the beginning. So. This whole talk is kind of the mindset or the shift that I had to go through going from a jQuery user, I would say, not even a jQuery developer, to an Ember developer. So the jQuery mindset, which probably many of you came from, I assume, right, is all about DOM manipulation, finding elements and doing something to them. The same old pattern of send a request off, either get JSON back or return some type of script that gets executed, and then you get to do the heavy lifting of DOM manipulation. And again, that part of that mindset for us is we call ourselves a Rails shop, right? We're Ruby on Rails. We're not JavaScript developers, so we always treated JavaScript as kind of a secondary language, right? It's like lesser than Ruby because we're a Rails shop. And we would use JavaScript or jQuery as a tool, not as a primary functioning language. And I think we were missing a lot in thinking in that pattern. So to start off, so the software that we run, which I'll show you here in a little bit, it's a software as a service application. We sell it to sales teams where they build out contracts, proposals, presentations, and we deliver them online. It's all web first, and you can go through the whole electronic signature process, binding agreement, and we're trying to speed up that sales flow. And one of the features in our application is this big document builder. It's this highly ambitious, highly interactive page or set of pages in our application. And that's what I'm primarily going to talk about. So we went through a massive redesign of our application starting about a year ago to be highly interactive. And what happened was one of my teammates, one of my developers, started building out this build view and did it just all in jQuery. And by the time I came into the application, because I was working on some back-end integration stuff, I came in to about 2,500 lines of jQuery probably, and it just was a mess. Like it just looked like I couldn't follow it. It was just a tangled web. My teammate was coming up with this whole custom object inheritance hierarchy type thing of extending other objects, instantiating, controlling the scope, trying to do a lot of magic and build that himself. And it just was really kind of mind-numbing to look at, I would say. Again, all of the stuff we were doing was just Ajax and DOM manipulation, like that pattern everywhere in our application, and it just kind of gets old and kind of frustrating as well. At this time, when I came in, less than half of the functionality we actually wanted was built, and we were already at about 2,500 lines of jQuery. And we had a beta launch coming up, and we needed a new solution. So this was kind of my thought process, thinking through the code as it currently was, and I kind of stated some of these as well. You kind of have that gut reaction when you look at code where it's just like, this isn't quite right, right? It just feels bad. Sometimes it looks bad, but sometimes it just feels bad. So as I was kind of trying to wrap my mind around what was already there, I could just see disaster ahead of us. I was like, this cannot be the way to develop this. Like, just as a smart, like, forward-thinking individual, like, this is not a smart way to go about this process. And I told my product manager, I said, this will crush us in 6 months. Like, we will get out there and just be hand-tied. We'd be just handcuffed to this web of jQuery that we had created. And so I thought we need to look at one of the JavaScript frameworks. And that's where Ember popped into my mind. I thought, oh, I just went to an Ember meetup. Dave told me all about Ember and how awesome it was. Why don't we visit that? But then all of these other options flooded into my memory as well. I was thinking, well, I've heard of 10 different things that are out there, haven't used any one of them at all. So which one is the best? Which one is the right one to go with? So from there, I basically chose Ember more for Dave. Being an evangelist of Ember, I had a local resource that I could go to and ask questions. Sure, I could go read documentation probably on all of the other frameworks, but having a friend and somebody who was enthusiastic about it to bring me up to speed that's a tremendous help. Ember certainly has a high learning curve, which probably most of you have experienced, but once you kind of get over that curve, it pays for itself over and over again. The EmberJS meetup like this has been invaluable to me, and then the IRC rooms have been great as well. Lots of guys out there actively answering questions. So a little background. Again, I said we're a Rails 3 application. We had an existing JSON API, so we thought, hey, that's a good start to things. And what we did, instead of going full bore, because we already had just completely revamped our application, instead of kind of starting over again, we said, let's pick one page out of our Rails application and convert it to Ember and see how it goes, kind of as a trial run. Yeah, come on in. So to go about this, which I'll show here in a little bit, is so if you guys are familiar with Rails at all, we kind of just took one route in our entire application, and we said this is going to be our Ember route. And we made a custom layout, we made kind of an empty page body, and we started building out all of the Ember, application. And I'll show that here in a bit. So that layout loads all of the assets. So the Rails layout loads all of our CSS, JavaScript, the actual Ember application. And then once that's loaded, Ember takes over. And we're actually right now currently using an older approach. So again, we started this 6 months ago. So we're kind of 6 months behind in where we are. So I'll talk about how that's been and where we're going to. So one of the cool things that I really enjoyed was we had been using Slim as our Ruby templating language, and I thought, crap, we're going to have to redo all of this stuff. And then we found Emblem, which was awesome. So basically all I had to do was rename our Slim templates to Emblem templates, and Ember was ready to go with that, which was really nice. Let's see here. So as I'm learning the framework, right, as we have all learned this framework, there are many different pieces to it, and I felt like what are the best things to use? And obviously routes, controllers, templates are all kind of the standard things you would use right away. But I actually started off in kind of a component-heavy view. Like Dave showed me how powerful components can be, and I thought, oh, everything should be a component. So I started down the road of everything's a component. That got really hairy and messy because we're message passing and all these, context switching kind of, and trying to hook things together. And components started to get nested, and I thought, well, this is getting too messy. Like, I don't think this is the right way to go about this. So I backpedaled and I said, let's undo the components and just switch back to controllers and templates. And that's worked out really well for us. The other thing I did is, as a route, as I learned the power of routes and how Ember emphasizes routes, I made everything a route. So kind of every state in our application became a route, which has a lot of advantages because I can copy and paste the link and you can go directly to where I am. We can set the state of the application. But what we found is where we had a bit of a challenge there, and I think I'm talking about that here in a little bit. But so the first couple of things that just kind of blew my mind as I was walking through this was updating the UI, right? Every time I was in Ember and I thought, hey, I want to add a new page, or I want to add a new list element, or I want to delete something, my mind constantly shifted back to jQuery of, oh, I need to locate it and remove it. I need to locate it and hide it. I need to, right? And I was kind of stuck in this old mindset of thinking. And one of the talks I heard or somebody mentioned to me was model-driven view. And for me, that just stuck in my head. It made a lot of sense of what you do to your model happens in your view. So you don't have to touch the view. You touch your model, you work with your objects, which I would much rather work with an object. And Ember takes care of the view. So it was amazing to me to be able to push an element onto an array and it pops up on the screen, right? Or remove an element from the array and it removes from the screen. So just thinking of how much effort that would be in jQuery to no effort in Ember was really empowering. The other great things about a framework is just what you get for free, right? So there's so many things in Ember that's just handed to you. So transition, loading, and error handling I thought was what a novel idea of, like, if something takes a long time to load, Ember will pop up a loading screen for you. If there's an error, it has hooks to hook into that. Transitions, like aborting and retrying transitions, I feel like you couldn't do that with jQuery, right? You weren't really transitioning, you were always just manipulating. Again, the data model, thinking that, hey, on the front end you can actually have a data model like you do on the back end, was, again, new to me, since this is all new territory. And I guess just the options that are available with Ember Data, UPF, and then just regular get JSON was really fun. And then computed properties was something we kind of went overboard with, in a good way. Like, computed properties have allowed us to create some really neat functionality. Here's some of the challenges we ran into. We, at the very beginning, had multiple states in our application where we wanted to show a view, but then we wanted another panel to show as well. And as you switch through certain routes, we wanted that panel to stay there. We didn't want that panel to hide every time the route changed. And so a couple of you guys helped me think through ideas of how is that possible to show multiple states within a single route. What we ended up doing, because of a deadline and because it just worked out better for us, is we kind of switched from using routes for everything more to rendering controllers. So we would render specific controllers that would then go load the data that it needed. And we were able to get that state management what we wanted, but we lost the deep linking. We lost some of the route, the usefulness of routes. Because of that, since we were loading data outside of a route, things also got interesting as well, because promises resolve differently when you're going through your normal route or the recommended route than they do if you're just calling for data inside of a controller function. So Chris helped me out with that, try to get that worked out properly. The other thing is, so we're using the older version, like I was saying, so we have everything is underneath an app global variable. And to get things loading and working the way we wanted to, because we're half Rails, half Ember, we started abusing, I should say, these app global variables, which we were actively looking to remove through these two approaches. So by controller needing other controllers, you can get that state that you need, and then we're actually doing some container lookup things as well to avoid these global variables. Then, as I was saying earlier, we started off heavy on components. And just, I kind of had a negative reaction to the message passing between components, because it's like, man, it's really annoying. I have to pass 5 things in and pass 5 things out, or however many you would have. And but I think over time we've realized the value of that and have settled in. One of the functionalities we wanted as well was autosave. So again, with this highly ambitious application, anything you modified, we wanted to save automatically for you. We found a mixin out there that was just an open source mixin that we grabbed and integrated, and it worked kind of okay. We ended up rolling our own kind of autosave, but just the power of Ember to be able to monitor changes to a model, see if it's dirty, save it off, and has been a really, that feature has been received really well by our clients. A couple ugly things that we came across was some of the jQuery things that we wanted to do, like sorting elements. I'll show you. We have a list view, actually kind of a double list view on the left side of our application that we wanted to drag and drop, right, the order of things, sort them. We were using jQuery sortable before, and so we thought, okay, we'll just use jQuery sortable again. But as you guys know, with all the script tags that are nested in there, you can't just start pulling DOM elements everywhere. The metamorph tags need to stay with that element. So that got a little ugly. I started using active model serializers. This was actually the first time we used that gem. Side loading was different for me, since that's all Ember knew at the time. I think the latest version now supports the full document, nested documents. And then we had some issues, well, not issues, but just a little more complexity in versioning our API. So we have an API that our clients were already using, and now we needed an API for Ember to use. So maybe not necessarily ugly, but some things that would have been nice to be a little bit easier. So here's, I'm going to actually switch over to a demo here. So these are all areas in our application that I'll show you here real quick that we're using computed properties, and just kind of the power that brings you. And again, thinking of what this would take to do in jQuery is kind of mind-numbing to me, I guess. So here's our application. This is kind of the front dashboard. This is just my dev environment here. Again, this is Rails. I'm going to switch into our document list view here, which is also Rails. What I'm going to jump into, I guess I actually should have picked come up with a good I should have come up with a good proposal to work from earlier. Maybe this will work. So this click in here into this Rails route is actually where the Ember application starts once it does load. So you can see the first part of this route is actually a Rails route. This is what's allowing us to set up that main template to kind of tell us what document we're looking at and what type of document we're looking at. Sorry, this is taking a while. Okay, so this here now is all Ember. Everything you see here is Ember, and we'll show you some of the functionality. So what I was mentioning earlier, so over here is our table of contents. We can add a new section. We can add a new page to that section. And again, right, the beauty of Ember of just adding and removing elements from a list. This is where our sortable issue came in, right? We wanted to be able to sort pages, and we wanted to be able to sort sections as well. And sometimes it gets a little tricky there. So we worked it out, but there's some interesting, you have to apply the sortable, but the Ember run loop gets in there, and you just have to make sure that state is managed properly. So let's see here. We have an inline editor here that will pop up for editing your content. Over here are those kind of subviews I was talking about. We have document properties, we have collaborators, we have an asset panel, and this tracking panel that we wanted up all of the time. So if I switched pages, I didn't want that panel to go away. And if everything's a route, you kind of had to maintain, okay, if I click on this page, I need to keep this panel open. So we have lost some of the nice route functionality here, but we've achieved what we wanted to with handling these multiple states. One cool function actually that I'm really proud of is up here. We call them call to actions, and there's only 3, which is neat. So this is kind of one larger component that contains these nested components. And as I fill out one of these things, like my call to action here is I want to assign or accept this document. Okay, once I have that call to action, I can't add that one again. It disappears. So as you switch and change which call to actions you have up here, the options change. And when you get to, when you've used all of them, you don't have the option to add anymore. And so it makes heavy use of computed properties, watching which state has been, or which action has been used, which ones are not. And it was really just a fun thing to figure out. That was one of the first kind of component or computed property, one of the more complex ones that I worked on. We have a cool one down here for changing, where is it, themes. So one of the neat features of Tinderbox is that you can theme your proposals any way you want. And so you can click through here and pick whichever theme you want to apply, and we're automatically pulling those style sheets in and applying it, and don't have to refresh anything. Oh, variable searching. So all of our documents have variables that you can use. So these are placeholders. So you have a template that you just want to swap out with different variables every time, right? Because salespeople are just trying to kick out as many documents as they can. Let's make sure. So down here, there's a little search bar, and we have a little issue with this highlighting over it. But as you search, I actually do have a little bit of a state management problem here. What it's supposed to do is, yeah, shoot. It is a really cool demo when it actually works, but it will change. As you can see here, there's 2 categories there right now, but as I remove that, so that we categorize variables a certain way, and as you type, we remove the categories, and then we also filter down the actual list as well. And I don't remember why some of these things aren't expanding. They're supposed to auto-expand and auto-collapse as you walk through this. So for some reason, custom's not expanding. But let's see here. I'm trying to remember what else we had over here. Yeah, let me me go ahead and publish this document. So we have this idea of you have a draft document, then you can publish it. And this was another cool thing. Usually this was a full page load because we needed the server to go do some stuff. And I guess I should have pointed it out. Watch some things around here, like adding a new section and a new page, modifying call to actions. All goes away, right? We reload this document that's in a new state, and Ember UI knows, hey, we're no longer in that state. You're no longer able to edit this document anymore. So all of the edit capabilities, like clicking on this page, no longer lets me edit it, and it locks down these elements here. Let me jump into here. So we have an internal view, which our clients use, and then this external view that a prospective client would log into. And again, we wanted to reuse that same behavior. Previously, we had two separate views. We would have the internal builder view, and we'd have the external. We'd have the external view, and now we have one. And I think I forgot that. I might not have. No, there's a. Where is it? No, there's a little access code that I had on this document. Yeah, you're right. I did that. Nice. That's good. So again, we wanted two different states. We wanted the same view, the same Ember application, but a public view and an internal view as well. So this is the external view. Actually, you know what? It's not. That I'm gonna have to switch. Let me fix something real quick, hopefully. I'm not watching my time, Dave. Make sure I'm not. So as I was saying earlier, we kind of have two different applications right now that we're gradually migrating clients over to, and I forgot that this proposal was made in the old view. Oh, great, that's what we wanted. Well, maybe I'll switch back. All right, let me just go find a better example here. Actually, I'll talk through a couple more slides and then figure out which of these documents I want to go look at. Maybe. Yeah, shoot. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, so I'm going to jump back over to the autosave functionality that we wanted. Really cool hooks at the model level. So anytime an object gets updated, created, deleted, we can respond to those events and update other portions of our application. Another really great trick that actually Chris introduced me to was the whole returning no content. So instead of updating an object and getting back that full JSON and having things update or kind of refresh or process all of that stuff, Ember knows the state of your application, and it's basically just telling the server the state of the application. So if the server acknowledges that it's the same state now, then the client doesn't have to do any reprocessing or additional work. One of the other things here I'd like to show, if I can get it working here, is we had this notion of we wanted to present a document and have a presenter and keep all of your clients that are viewing it in sync. So we were already using an application called Pusher, or an API called Pusher to keep track of real-time state. And Ember had a Pusher mix-in out there that we pulled in, and we're able to create a pretty neat screen sync demo, which I hope I can pull up here in a little bit. The other really cool functionality we added was drag and drop. So again, we wanted to be highly interactive, and with Ember's hooks for dragging and dropping, we were able to make some pretty neat functionality there. Let me see if I can pull that up now. You know, one of the things I did not do is pick out a proposal that I wanted to show. It should work. So the Ember pusher adds this pretty neat, actually I'm going to pull up 2 documents here so we can show the drag and drop as well. Again, I'm going to go into this published document, hopefully. Oops, not that. But what we wanted, we had a couple criteria. We wanted to know who's viewing the document, and then we wanted one person to control what was happening here. And actually, this Pedro, this is for you. This proposal is actually in French, so you might be able to read it. Oh, geez, are you kidding me? Having bad luck with the proposals I'm picking here. Let me show you, I guess, one of the tracking features. So one of the functionality we have here is as a user is clicking through this public document, as they're clicking through these pages, we want to know what they're looking at. This is a big value add for salespeople. Are people actually looking at the content that we're sending them? So as you click through, we have JavaScript tracking, you know, when you started, when you stopped, and we're able to keep track of how long you've stayed on a page. And one of the functionality we wanted was to be able to filter those viewers. So here you can see we've had 3 unique visitors to this document, the time spent on each page, and then kind of the breakdown of what each user did on that page. And this was, again, another neat area of computed properties. As I check and uncheck the users that have been there, we see the statistics change for what pages and the duration that they've looked at. So that was another neat usage of computed properties. Again, this I picked a document that was not created in this version, so that's kind of annoying. I'll show the drag and drop functionality here. If I can get to the right page here. So as I was saying, in the build view, as you're editing sections and pages or your different content, you might want to use things that have been used before. So if I want an image from my asset library, you can click and drag right into the editor. If you want, oh, this is a fun example. So actually, this is a neat Ember example as well. What that warning was is you went past the page limit. So as you're adding text to the page, we're keeping track of how many characters are there, kind of like Twitter, right? It keeps track of your 140 characters. So if you go over it, we warn you, and it doesn't save, and you need to fix it. Let's see here. Content, we have reusable content pieces in our library. So these are all pages that you could use or reuse. And by dragging this page and adding it to the toolbar over here, it pops up that page, and you can now reuse that element. So adding, this is a component over here that listens for a drop property. This is a component over here that is setting the drag element. That's the data that gets passed in the, when dragging. If you want to take this content and not drag it into the toolbar, but drag it into this, oh, that page might be locked for editing. You can drag the content actually into the editor itself and just make it or append it to a particular page. We have the idea of snippets as well, where they're just small little sentences, like if you're doing an RFP and you're responding to a question, you can just say, hey, there's the answer to that question. So the drag and drop is... Oh yeah, so great question. So we, as I was talking about variables earlier here, our variable lists, we kind of created this ourselves, I guess, several years ago. These are actually our own variable replacements. So it's actually a Ruby hash on the background and the back end. And we go through our own substitution in the back end, substituting these curly braces, which was fortuitous because what we will do now is treat this page as an Ember template. or as a handlebars template, we'll take our variable hash that we already have on the client side, and we can merge those two together on the client side instead of asking the server to always do that work for us. That is not something we've done yet, but that is the next step. Under here, there's an item here where we say, hey, show variables, basically replace the variables in my content so I can see what it's really going to look like. And that will trigger kind of these dynamic handlebars templates and variables. I wanted to show this part here. So this is the pusher part. So we're keeping track of kind of like a chat room, right? Who's a member of this room? So this document has a specific channel that it's listening on, and as people join, and actually I guess I should be able to, I can do it in the build view. I just don't necessarily have to do it from the public view. I'll log in as a different user just so we can see what happens. I don't know if I can bring these up side by side, hopefully. So we'll see here as this user joins, this takes a while to load. As this user joins, Ember Pusher is going to say, hey, we have a new member, and this new member was just added. So Andrew just joined the conversation. Here's his user avatar that would show up if he had one. Andrew as well over here gets to see who's in this document view. And then what will happen here is, let's say he's the client, he's visiting this page, but we don't really want him to drive it. We don't want him going out of order. So what I'm going to do as my user is I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to screen sync, and I'm going to actually change him to a different page real quick. We'll put him on that page. So as I enable screen sync, I jump that client's page to the page that I'm on. And now I'm in control. Andrew can't click on any of these pages. He can't navigate. Only I can navigate for him. So as we click through the pages, his page is changing on the page that I'm at. And again, this is all Ember Pusher. So we're signaling I'm going to this page, and then the client's listening for that event and saying, okay, I need to be on this page. So again, Ember transitions being like, hey, transition to this page, transition to this page was awesome. Yeah?
So that Ember Pusher, it only works with the Pusher API?
Yes. Yeah. There's Ember like Firebase if you're using that. There's, I forget the third one. There's another real-time API, like maybe Socket.io or something. Yeah, but this one is specifically for Ember. Or I'm sorry, for Pusher. Yes. We also added in some arrow keys. So we have presentations is a big new feature that we're going to be adding here. So as I arrow left and right, I can kind of treat it like a presentation and just step through each of the pages. And when I'm done, I can just uncheck this, and we tell all the clients, hey, screen sync's ended. You're now back in control, and this user can now click through any of the pages that he wants to. So I think this is the end. So this is kind of the state that we're at now. We are going to be expanding, as I showed you some of those other pages. We'll be converting those to Ember and adding new routes, and eventually Ember will be our entire front end. We're adding a whole new UI for presentation building. It'll be very similar to this build view, but it'll be for PowerPoint slides. Very similar to like Reveal.js and your slide builder and things like that. As I said, this will eventually shift over, but okay. And then the next big thing for us on our roadmap is Ember CLI. So we have seen the light, and we want to follow it and walk into it. So we are prepping our app right now, getting rid of those clunky global variables, and preparing us to get over to Ember CLI. But I wanted to show real quick, like this is where our Ember app lives right now. If you're familiar with Rails, you have app, assets, JavaScripts, and then here's an app folder. So basically it's your Ember CLI structure just nested inside of here. And unfortunately, we have sprockets doing all the compilation, and it's slow, and there's some annoyances there, but it's done pretty well for us. It's done well for us so far. The other thing we're still on is we're not on the ES6 module. So again, we're still using the you know, the old app global variable, and yeah, hope we can be off of that by end of the year, hopefully. So yeah, that is it. Yeah, any questions?
Can you think more about the Ember feature? Kind of just the idea of how it works.
Yeah. I can actually jump into code here real quick since I have not shown any code. Let me find, where's my mixin? I know it's probably hard to see over here. It's not it. Oh, I think I put it under vendor. So there's a JavaScript file you would grab off of, I can't remember her name, but her GitHub page, you would download the Ember pusher min file, and I think I threw it into like vendor assets. I didn't actually throw it underneath the Ember application itself. But you can see here, so this is my document controller. So this is what we consider a document. Sorry, this build view is our document. So this document controller is handling everything inside of here. So there are two mixins. Actually, there's two available ones. It depends on whether you're receiving events or sending events. So you would mix in Ember pusher bindings and client events because we want to send and receive. And so we had to do something a little interesting. I need to find it here. So I actually had to override the init function of this controller because I wanted a custom channel name. I wanted to create one specifically for this document, and there was something with the loading of Ember Pusher where it needed to be there kind of before the data got there. It wanted it either as a, actually, I take that back. It wanted it declared at at the class level. So it wanted you to declare everything up front, but I wanted a dynamic channel name. So they recommend you override init and change or set the channel name that you want. So it's basically a hash of events for a channel name. So you can see here, subscription seeded, member added, member removed. Those are just the membership of a channel. And then we have events, our own custom client events that we want to use for starting sync, ending sync, and a page sync. So it was really neat. You basically declare those events or those actions, and then all you do is add them to your actions hash down here. So here I have just a method by that actual name, which is pretty cool. And so it's fed a list of members when subscription succeeds. When a member is added, you're given a member. When a member is removed, you're given the member that's removed. And you can see here I'm maintaining that list of active viewers. So as I come in, as I join a conversation and 10 people are there, I'm going to grab those 10 members and I'm going to push them onto my active viewer list. When a new member gets added, I'm going to look to see if that member already exists in my member info or my active viewers, and if they don't exist, then I'm going to add them. I ran into some situations where members would show up multiple times if they were opening, multiple tabs or windows or something. And then here's our other events here as well. So if I click that checkbox that says start the screen sync, then I'm going to set that to true, and I think I have an observer that's watching this property that then kicks into action. But then here's the client screen sync page. So anytime I get data from the screen sync, I'm essentially just transitioning to that route. I'm grabbing the page ID and I'm transitioning over.
What's on the server side?
On the actual server side, nothing much actually. So Ember has two different states, where you can do server-side events or what are called client events that kind of bypass your server. I think they just go directly to Pusher. I think Pusher handles all that communication. But yeah, those are certain events that are called client events. And I guess I can't, wouldn't be able to describe the distinct differences between those. But there is one, what is it? We do have one Pusher controller here that does authentication. So this is certainly in the loop. Just the Pusher gem that we're using kind of automatically hooks into this Pusher auth. And it's basically just where we're registering those users. So we know your name, your username, your avatar, and we're saying, hey, Pusher, here's that user that just joined. So I guess that portion is us communicating with Pusher. Yeah, this is the Pusher gem here, authenticating that user. Yeah.
Can you talk about the multiple models, single route, segment controller?
Yeah, actually, this one actually is a great example because the document here, actually, it's probably our, well, not our only example, but yeah, we have multiple states here. Sorry, why is this not dragging? Multiple states here, tracking, insert, but then we even have substates as well, right? So this document has properties, variables, and preview. And again, as I stated, the first time we tried to do this, all of these were routes because that would be great. Instead, what we did is we kind of set, they are now controller states. So we have these panel states that the controller is keeping track of whether it's shown or hidden. And then essentially we have conditionals here. That's one of them. I don't want to show that one now. This one. So here's the conditionals, right? So I would say this is obviously not probably the Ember way of doing things. Not real proud of showing this, but basically here's our state management. It's just in the view, and we're rendering out to those controllers. So the same controllers I was using in the route, I'm reusing, and then I'm either passing it a new context, or it'll go fetch its own data if it needs it, like the assets panel does. So. Yeah, learn very important lesson, which you guys probably all know, between partial and header, right? Partial just renders the template inline and keeps you in the same context, doesn't switch controllers, where render actually renders a new controller and puts you into a new context, a new state. And I got tricked by that a couple times, thinking a controller was a singleton, but it's not a singleton if you're rendering it like this. It creates its own instance. So when you go to look up what you think is the singleton instance, it's really not, and you think you're missing data. So there were some nuances when we did that.
Have you looked into the query parameters?
Yeah, so I have looked into it. I have not yet tried it. So at the time when we started, that was like only in the beta or canary build, and I think it's in the latest version now, right? Or it's.
Just repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. He asked about query parameters. So could we maintain these multiple states using query parameters? And I think the answer is yes, and that's where we want to move to. So they were, I think, just recently out in the canary build when we attempted this, and I just thought, I don't want to get into that. But I believe either in the latest version they're now available or will be soon, so yeah. Was it 1.7? Okay, yeah. So yeah, that'll certainly be another step, yeah, that we take.
It seems like it might help.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your minimum browser? Or do you have like?
Yeah, we do for this one. Yeah, so for this view, again, as I was saying, we're switching to this whole new paradigm. So yeah, for this one, I think our minimum browser is IE9. So. Or maybe it's IE10 actually. Maybe we did 10.
Why do you have AngularJS training videos?
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Thank you. That's really great.
This one right there, yeah. Yes, I do.
Yeah, the whole time.
Thanks,
Joe.
Sorry, I should have shut that down.